Introduce to you Francesca Vietor, who is with the San Francisco Foundation and, with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, a commissioner who's very involved in energy work and has been, sort of one of our leaders in terms of really trying to pull different people together and organizations together to try to help build this movement. So it's a pleasure to introduce her as the moderator of our next panel, where we're going to talk about some really interesting work that's been going on over the last year. And then just want to say that after this particular panel, and I hope we have some more time for discussion, if you look on your agenda, we're going to be breaking out into 3 breakout sessions. And those sessions are to highlight work in 3 areas that's going on, and they will be in different rooms. I will go find out the names of the rooms, and it's also posted there, so you'll know where to go for those breakout discussions. Okay, so Francesca, please take it away.
Thank you, Al. So hi, I'm Francesca Vietor, and thank you for the nice introduction. And I want to thank Al and the conference organizers, and also all of you. I'm sort of humbled to be here because you guys are the ones that are really doing the work and doing all these on-the-ground projects that are just amazing and are really what we need to bring online to move the dial and get us to a local, clean energy, equitable energy society. So I'm really excited to be here. We have such a great panel, so I'm really excited about that too, and I'm going to be a little bit ruthless about the timekeeping. And each of the panelists is only going to have 5 minutes instead of the 10 that we had originally talked about, so that we can have a dialogue and discussion, because I think that's really important for you to be able to ask questions and share some of your ideas and thoughts as well. And we're going to really be hearing, mostly this panel is going to be about one report and one plan that are one that's been finished and is now out, and one that's in progress and being drafted and should be done in the next couple of weeks, but that really provide the roadmap or the blueprint for how we're going to really get to the clean energy economy that we've been looking to get to. And I'm going to actually, to save a little bit of time, just do a short introduction of each panelist and then ask them to say just a couple of quickies about your experience and why you're here. And what you're doing. So introduce yourselves as part of it, because I think that'll save a little time and give you a little bit more time as well. But I heard this quote the other day and I thought it was really great. And it goes, between an idea and an action lies a kingdom. And I think there's so many great ideas that get floated around, that we hear about, that you're all working on, that we come up with, that are either innovative or they're old-fashioned or whatever they are. But so many of you have really gotten to this place of taking action. And really some of them are somewhat risky. It's like, whether there's a financial risk or whether there's an organizational risk or whatever it is. And that should really be applauded, because I really feel like without that risky action, without that innovative thinking and then the action that follows up on that, we're not going to get to where we need to go. So I just, again, want to applaud you. And we are going to not only hear about the reports, but we're going to hear from 2 activists that have been working for years in the field and have really moved a lot of these ideas across that kingdom and really implemented a lot of these incredible ideas and taken action through the organizations and with what they've done. So I think it's a really exciting panel. So I'm not going to take any longer. I'm going to introduce Bill Powers. He is the author, should we call it, of the Bay Area Smart Energy 2020 report, the BASE report, which is a really exciting document. If you haven't seen it, there's an executive summary, I believe, in your packets. There's a full version of it online, and Bill is going to talk a little bit about himself for a quick moment and how he got to be the author of this incredible report and what the plans are and what we really need to do to implement what's written in the plan. Bill Powers.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, all of you, for being here today. And I think what I'll do is start off with what is a form of good news, which is utility rates, PG&E rates, are projected to go up approximately 50% by 2020. And the greenhouse gas reduction projection is essentially zero. So the status quo plan is a lot of additional expense, no greenhouse gas advance. And I think that it's good to have that in your mind because it's a real advantage in pushing for local distributed renewable generation future. And why is it going up like that? Why is it going up 50% in just 9 years? Primarily excessive spending on transmission, on gas turbine backup, on overpriced RPS contracts, and on meters. And this presents an opportunity. And the opportunity is this report that I worked on, Bay Area Smart Energy 2020, that I'm the author of. What that report has done is taken what we say we want to do and turn it into something concrete. What we say we want to do is the Energy Efficiency Strategic Plan, and that plan is essentially zero net energy buildings at a relatively fast pace. The plan that I put together really just extends a little bit what the state already says is its goal. 25% of homes are near net zero energy by 2020. 50% of existing businesses are zero net energy by 2030. I've got upgrades to the geysers geothermal field in the report, adding a dry cooling system, expansion of combined heat and power in the Bay Area using preferentially biogas, and battery storage. Battery storage to turn the wind farm in Solano County into a more baseload facility, and battery storage at the community level for community level microgrids. And the objective of doing this is to drop the greenhouse gas emissions from electricity generation in the Bay Area, or electricity usage, by 60% by 2020, compared to zero for the utility, and to drop the peak load by 50%, or at least the peak load on the grid. And what I want to emphasize is that essentially what I've done is taken what the state says it already wants to do, the Energy Efficiency Strategic Plan, AB 32 implementation plan, and turn it into something concrete. What would it be? And this is what it is. Is it feasible? Francesca asked me to address this. Is it feasible? Well, taking my own area, which is San Diego, about 1% of our homes and businesses have net metered solar systems on them. And if we take that as a point of departure, 1%, if we increment that up 0.5% per year, 1.5% are equipped with rooftop solar this year, 2% the next year, 2.5% the next year, we get to 25% by 2020 on homes and businesses. It's not a big leap. And if we maintain net metering in its existing form, which is not great, but it's sufficient, this could almost happen seamlessly. It just happens. That's one of the reasons utilities are digging in hard to try and prevent the cap being lifted on net metering, and to change how the rates are done so it's not as attractive as it is. Because as it stands now, if it is in this form and that cap is lifted, this is going to happen on its own. Another tool that's available that has been, one good example is Palo Alto Utilities, where they've come up with a clean energy payments or feed-in tariff protocol or program for starting with small commercial buildings, 100 kW and up, 14 cents a kilowatt hour. I know they're still waiting to get their first applicant, but I'm sure that will happen very soon because that price will work. It's tough, or it's tight, but it will work. And what we have is a public utility doing something innovative which will work, and then we have Utilities Commission implementing a feed-in tariff that isn't a feed-in tariff. SB 32, which we have been waiting on the tariff for that, it's not a tariff, it's an auction. And what we'll see from that is not a single rooftop panel. We will see many utility ground-mounted systems somewhere out there. That's not going to get it done. Another tool that is available and has been implemented very successfully in Sonoma County is property assessed clean energy. That's gaining a lot of energy in the state, especially commercial property assessed clean energy. And I think that's always had a great deal of potential. What stopped it on residential homes a couple of years ago is not an impediment for the third of Californians that own their own homes. So there's a huge market of millions of facilities could use that tool now to pay nothing up front and do this. Challenges. Community choice aggregation, one point there, but challenges. The governor's office is a challenge. Right now, the governor, on paper, we're going to do 12,000 megawatts of local renewables. But in actuality, all the momentum's the other way. The big RPS projects are getting de facto project-specific feed-in tariffs. What do you need to make it work? Boom, you get a contract. We don't have that for rooftop solar, and we need equal time and equal treatment. The other problem is we're still getting studies out of the PUC that say local solar is more expensive than business as usual. Those studies are wrong. The one I'm thinking of is E3, March 2012, came out the same time my report came out. Conclusion's erroneous, that a local solar future would be more expensive than business as usual, and that has to be dealt with. And finally, expanding net metering and, as I said, getting a fair feed-in tariff that is equivalent to what the big RPS projects are getting now, and we're off to the races. Thank you.
He didn't really do an introduction of himself, and he has a very impressive bio, and just, and I don't know if the biographies were included, but I just want to say that, you know, he served as an expert witness at the California Energy Commission, and he, you know, worked on the San Diego Smart Energy 2020 report, and we are just so, I'm so sorry that we don't have more time to hear your thoughts, and I'm hoping that you can ask questions and catch him in the hall, because he is really a star to have on this panel. Another star that we have is Bruce Riordan. And I will do a short intro, since self-introductions, we don't know how well that's going to go. And Bruce is the coordinator, the consultant for the Joint Policy Committee, which is ABAG, Association of Bay Area Governments, Bay Area Air Quality Management District, Bay Area Conservation and Development Commission, and Metropolitan Transportation Commission. So 4 of our regional instrumental policymaking bodies, and we are so fortunate to have Bruce to be there to coordinate those 4 voices. And one of the things, the mandates of the JPC has been to come up with a Bay Area Renewable Power Action Plan, which Bruce has been drafting, and we're going to hear about it today. Bruce Reed.
Okay, 10 minutes down to 5. I once, Freddie Prinze Sr., I once heard him claim he could do a 60-minute act in 8 minutes, but I think there were a lot of drugs involved. And it's early a little for me, before noon. I had a couple of slides if you're throwing them up, but if not, you know, I'll just hold them up. I am not an expert on local renewable power. My job at the Joint Policy Committee on a couple of different topics is to find experts and help them do more by working together. So I was very fortunate, and am very fortunate, to work on this project with Al and Kirsten and Bill Powers and Ted and Woody and Carla and some others that you'll hear from today. What we have is a whole series of groups working in the Bay Area on local renewable power, mostly in silos, some together. And so our idea was to pull them together and see if there was something, 1 thing, 2 things, maybe 3 that we could do together, in addition to our own work done by nonprofits and government agencies and others. And the group said, yes, there were some things that we could do together. So we put together, I'd say, a rather modest initial plan. We've called it the action plan, but that's a little grand sounding. We really need to be building towards a real action plan to take the work that Bill Powers has done with Base 2020 and the other great work that's been done. Al has a terrific report, Community Power and the others, and create a real solid action plan. That's going to take a while, but this is our initial shot at it. So throw the next slide. Probably down to 2 minutes.
No, 3 minutes.
Okay, so there's a goal. There, you can see the goal there. We set it before Bill's report came out. We had some back and forth about how many megawatts. We picked for now at least 2,400 by 2020 for the Bay Area. It could go higher. And at the same time, we're being conscious that we need to think about other things other than just the megawatts goal. We want to reach that goal. That's the target, but we want to boost business growth in this area. We want quality job creation. We want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we really want to focus, while we're doing the 2,400 or whatever the number is, on the health of communities that have been impacted and are impacted by poor air quality. So we're going to try to accelerate the action that all of the different groups are doing to implement their own plans and bills base 2020. We're trying to link this work with work on energy efficiency and on electric vehicles and related fields in the region, so there's some synergy there. We're focusing primarily on Bay Area strategies we can control here in the Bay Area, but with an eye towards an advocacy agenda for Sacramento. We had an initial meeting where we took 18 of us to Sacramento to meet with the governor's key folks on renewable power and on local renewables. I won't say we accomplished a lot in that first meeting. We need to do a better job with them in going back, but Sacramento is going to be very important to this. And we're focused on results. So, last slide. 4 tasks. The first one is we've spotlighted in the short plan probably about 10 or 12 current projects in the region, and our idea is to work to get them replicated region-wide. We think they have some of the best potential to expand local renewable power in the region, and there are a variety of ways that will make that replication happen. And those will be things like community choice aggregation with Marin Clean Energy and Clean Power SF and Sonoma Clean Power that you heard about. Things like the Helios project that Tom Kelly is going to talk about, and Oakland Solar Mosaic. There are a whole series of good projects in the region. We want to pick some of them and help them get replicated across the various counties, like the SEV-REP project that became the RREP that will be talked about here in a little bit. Secondly, we are trying to organize how we're working at the barriers and opportunities, and so you'll be hearing about these in workshops, but we're trying to kind of keep a scorecard: permitting and inspection, grid interconnection, CCA, financial tools, the things that will make this plan work, and again, coordinating amongst the various groups that are working now on those different issues. Third, and in wrapping up, how do we integrate again with energy efficiency work? There's a lot of work and a lot of money going into energy efficiency. How do we work? How do we link with that and with all the efforts going on here around electric vehicles in the region? And finally, the last one, how do we, from our own experiences here and from the success or failures of various projects in the regions, create that agenda for Sacramento? Finally, this is not going to happen without a full-time coordinator on it, so we're working on this. I can only spend a certain amount of time on it to turn this into a real action plan and to really work with the members of the network and to expand the network, which we need to do. We are going after a Climate Corps person for next year, which we're very hopeful to get, and that will give us an ability to move forward and make this thing real. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And maybe one more task is to clean up the melted ice cream truck.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting photograph. I guess it's sort of climate change and what we have to look forward to. This melted ice cream. So I'm going to introduce Lisa Hoyos. And she might not be able to stay with us for the discussion because she has another previous engagement. So, but I'm so glad that she's here because she's the California director of the BlueGreen Alliance. And we talked this morning about the importance of labor connection, labor, environment, land use, transportation, and we're all really part of the same community, part of the same movement, and that we need to work together to get to the local clean energy economy that we're trying to get to. And so we're so fortunate to have Lisa here to talk about that and what the opportunities are and some of their advocacy work to really bridge that gap. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Francesca. And actually, I'm going to be here all day, and the very random, unfortunate thing, because I do have to go for a minute, it just happens to be during this great opportunity to converse with you all, is there's a board hearing right now. Board of Directors is going to decide on whether they're going to go with a company that's going to make 95% of their content for the rail cars, $3.2 billion investment, make it here in this country or make it elsewhere. And so it just so happens to be the time I have to testify right now, which is kind of mean, but anyway. The BlueGreen Alliance is a coalition of, a national coalition of 8 big labor unions, national labor unions, and 4 big national environmental groups, NRDC, Sierra Club, Union of Concerned Scientists, and National Wildlife Federation. And on the labor side, CWA, AFT, the teachers, Sheet Metal is very active here in California. Sheet Metal Union, we got Eric Emblem in the house somewhere. Eric? There. Oh, and Dave Diaz also. strong allies. But anyway, in the interest of time, I want to just say a few things, and I hope I'm building on some of the things that Lisa Maldonado, who I've known for years and love dearly. Lisa, are you still here, or did you take off? Okay. Didn't need to call her out on that. She's very busy. So anyway, Al had asked whether we could comment on, from labor's, if I could comment a little bit on labor's perspective about the brilliant, strategic, cutting-edge reports that you guys did, the one that you wrote, and then the action plan for the Bay Area. And ironically, I've never even met you, and I'm so happy now to be able to, hopefully at the cocktail hour or at lunch, when I'm back, collaborate about how we can engage labor more meaningfully and strategically in the implementation of this report. So one thing the BlueGreen Alliance, the one thing that's in the report that Bill had talked about was energy efficiency, the base goal of zero net energy by 2015 for the Bay Area. He said it was really close to the state goal, which is zero net energy for residential and commercial by 2020. So interestingly, and this is where we could work together better, I went with NRDC, who works really closely with labor, and with Eric would have been there, but he had something come up, and with someone from the IBEW to talk about how we want to keep the CEC's proposed building standards, the Title 24 Energy Efficiency Building Code standards, as strong as they had originally proposed. It had already been weakened over the course of 2 years, but we wanted them to hold the line. We were hearing rumors that the Home Builders Association had been advocating to weaken the standards, and it was true. We got there, we were a little bit day late and $1 short. They had already kind of cut a deal, and on the residential side, the standards are, the CEC language that's going to come out in a couple days will be weakened. It was originally, they set their sights at 50%, they moved it down to 33%, now it's moved down to 25%. So we have a goal to do even better here in the Bay Area, and I think what we need to do is strategize earlier on with labor, because here's a couple issues, and Eric can speak to this really well. Lots of times on the energy efficiency side, the codes aren't enforced. You don't have enough people enforcing. You guys know all about the budget cuts that are hitting us. So we don't have strong codes. We could have gotten, I think, labor out there earlier in support of the codes, but there was some, I don't want to get too much into the details for lack of time, but there was a certain sort of standard for doing the testing that labor really wanted to see in the codes. They fought for it, they went to public hearings, it didn't get in the codes. Had it gotten in the codes, I think we could have had more full force early support for the codes. So these are the kinds of things where I think it's on us as clean energy advocates to dialogue with labor much sooner, and labor to dialogue with us much sooner. But to go into a base 2020 plan like this and say, where are the points of engagement? Where are good quality jobs going to emerge from here? Like the combined heat and power section. What does that mean? What workers can we engage around this to use their advocacy power? Not to use their advocacy power, but to have a joint shared vision. And I'll say this because I know I don't have much time. I'd say it's fair to say that some labor folks, leaders like Eric Emblem and Dave Diaz, leaders like this guy Bernie Kotlier, are super right there with this goal of we care about climate change, we care about our environment, we care about asthma rates in the central city in San Francisco, and we care about all this stuff. And we have to do what Lisa was saying, underscore the need for good jobs. And our learning curve needs to be elevated about what labor's interest is. Now sometimes you're not going to get some labor, and that's like the pipeline, you guys all know about that. Labor was divided on the pipeline. There were some labor unions that were very much in favor of the pipeline, the XL pipeline. There were some that were concerned and believed what James Hansen, the climate scientist, said about it's a ticking time bomb and game over if we exploit the tar sands out of Canada. So what I think we need to do is have more meaningful, heartfelt conversations where we ask each other to do hard things, and I'll close on this. I'll close on one more quick thing. But that this, we who don't understand labor, who really knows, who could stand up right here and say, what's a project labor agreement? Okay, but a lot of us can't. Most of the room can't. But we need to be able to do that. And similarly, we need to make it harder. And there's this great guy I totally respect, and I want you guys to write down this website. It's called Labor Network for Sustainability. It's run by a guy named Joe Uline, 30 years in the labor movement, comes out of laborers. He really cares about climate change, and he really believes that labor as a social movement needs to be on the cutting edge of trying to save our planet for the next generation. So understand that, but what I want to say about that is the more we're there for labor, the easier it is for us to speak labor's language and then get the labor power on our side when we have labor's power on our side. So I'll close with this, the Kochs. They are going after, they're trying to get the governor of Wisconsin to smash unions. They're trying to get they're paying for an initiative here in November to make it harder for unions to use our political leverage to elect the candidates we want. Who do we want in general? Democrats. Who in general is going to fight for clean energy policy? Democrats. Isn't every single person in this interest in this room to engage and support labor in its fights, because we have way more political capital when we go with them and say, you know what? You could build this project or you could build this project. And we want you, labor union writ large, to try to move in the direction of sustainability. And we got your back, you have our back, and adelante. But we have big class warfare going on in this country, waged on us as labor, waged on us by clean energy advocates, by gazillionaires like the Kochs. So we need to step it up and fight hard and learn to speak the language. So I think we need to have at the cocktail hour a conversation about how we overlay a labor involvement strategy in the Base 2020 plan. And I'm totally down for that. It's almost what I live for. So hopefully we can talk. And I'll be back later. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. We cannot underestimate or overstate the importance of labor at the table for these discussions. I mean, the distributed generation goals that the governor's put out there for us, and with community choice aggregation, which I know we're going to talk a lot about, we're not going to be able to make those programs happen without the early engagement and the participation of the labor unions and the labor movement. So thank you, Lisa. Good luck to you. Board meeting. Next, we get to hear from Miya Yoshitani, who is, did I get that right? Miya, Yoshitani, who is at Asian Pacific Environmental Network. We love APEN. They are so great because they are really looking at the nexus of all of the things that we care about. Community engagement, environmental issues, environmental justice and social justice issues, land use and transportation. And Miya is the associate director there, so we are so lucky to have her to hear about what they are up to and what they're doing to help move us towards a local, clean, renewable, equitable energy economy.
5 words or less. So I'm feeling like I'm just going to ditch everything that I was going to say because I only have 5 minutes, but yes, thank you for having me be part of this discussion because this is really exciting. I wanted to start out by just saying one phrase that's been going around my mind lately as we try to figure out how we implement this stuff and engage real people in this fight. 1 million climate jobs. How about that? Maybe 5 years or something. 1 million climate jobs, right? Okay, so I feel like we need to totally reframe how we are pushing our argument. And from a community point of view, we're working class too. The environmental justice communities who have been fighting these dirty energy projects and who've been living with the impacts of the fossil fuel industry, as my sister Tede was talking about earlier. These are the communities that not only have been most impacted, but they needed jobs too. We haven't even gotten to the union jobs yet. We're not losing union jobs. We haven't had them. We want them. We really want them. And I feel like that can be part of this plan too. My organization has been organizing in low-income immigrant and refugee communities for the past 18 years. And we have really been on the front lines of holding back the fossil fuel economy onslaught and trying to figure out ways to engage the folks in the community on the fence lines, next to the freeways, in the schoolyards, who are being most impacted by these issues, by the impacts of the dirty energy policies that we have imposed on these communities for so long. We've been on these front lines and we've been coming up with solutions on how to put blockades in front of the advanced agenda of the fossil fuel industry. And that's really incredibly important. So we've been trying to stave off some of the worst of what's coming just by trying to survive, just by trying to keep our heads above water and by trying to put our health first. So in that sense, we've had a lot of experience working on energy policy, but in a lot of other ways, you know, me personally, even though I feel like I'm a recent convert to energy policy in a small way. I definitely have the religion. I'm not sure if I if I know all the verses yet, but I'm there. I'm with you. But I'm also new to this sort of arcane world of energy policy that is very difficult to crack. And that's one of the reasons that I feel like I'm up here right now, is I feel like even my individual brain is partially like a bridge to what I feel like we need next. We need a translation of this, like quite literally, we need a translation. Like the folks that I work with don't even speak English, so we literally need a translation. But we need to really invest in translating the ideas and the vision in this, and that action plan. We need to translate that literally and figuratively, so that our communities, the most impacted communities, can be not just the beneficiaries of new policy, but can be at the table making the policy with labor, with the policy advocates, with the folks who I know you have been wrapping your brains around this for decades, and I have so much tremendous respect for what's gone into the brilliance of the ideas in the report. It's just that we need to take it to another level. We need people in the streets, folks. And I feel like that stuff is not going to happen until we're actually, including labor, yes, but really, really significantly integrating, engaging leadership from the communities who've been most impacted. And those folks, that's not because that's just the right thing to do, because obviously it is the right thing to do. But that's because these folks want to do this. When we talk to our members, and they are so excited about renewable energy, you would not believe it. They're excited about for their own neighborhoods and what we can build for their vision, but for the next generation, for their grandchildren, for the planet. Folks are down for it, but we just need to talk to them where it's really hitting them at their hearts, their wallets. We need to find a whole new way of building more powerful partnerships and more equitable partnerships with the folks who are really going to roll this out and provide the muscle behind the plan, who are going to actually provide the energy that you need, to make this real. So I'll just end it at that. But say that again, 1 million climate jobs. I think we can get there, and I think that if we are all in this room together on this, that we can really prioritize needs that people have today with the needs for a healthy planet and the environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Miya. That's so great. And I also want to just give a shout out to APEN and their work on Prop 23, because I think that's a real example of a real win that organizations coming together, diverse communities coming together, and really fighting the big bad oil companies, and it really worked. So just a big shout out for all the work that APEN put into that, because they're really a leadership role there. And there are two really important points, I think, that you brought up that I just want to kind of elevate and echo. And one is kind of this framing question, and I'm hoping that at breaks and at lunch and cocktail hour there'll be opportunity to talk more about it, because I think it's a real issue, is sort of the jargon and the arcane language and this sort of policy perspective that so much of this energy work is about. And we need to figure out a way to engage a much wider community and to really talk to the people in the middle of the country, or the people who speak different languages. And that's not going to be the kind of language that we're currently using. It's really got to be about speaking to the heart and really speaking to the health of these various communities. So I just want to kind of echo that framing of the language, that jargon, and how we're going to really crack that nut. And the other piece is really this development, this leadership development, and we've got to work harder at finding the pipeline to elevating these community leaders and putting them in positions of power. Decision-making positions, having them at the table, having their voices heard. It is just not happening, and somehow we got to figure that out. So thank you for bringing those two really critical points up. And so I'd like to open it up. I don't know how strict Al's going to be with our time, but so maybe we could take a few questions. Maybe we'll move this way. So go, and then we'll go to you next. And if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Shauna Lazaro, Communities for a Better Environment. I actually had a question for Bill. Hold on.
Can everybody hear?
So my question was maybe pretty targeted. I appreciated your point about staying on trajectories for the solar installations in the SDG&E territory. I wondered, so there's a net metering program in place. You identified a couple of barriers statewide. I wondered if you had any sort of visions for how to maintain or even increase that 0.5% annually, was it? Just like policy mechanisms, or, I mean, I assume that you got the low-hanging fruit in what you have already. Thoughts on that?
I would say we just have started to get the fruit. I mean, that we barely touched, and we've got probably... Can you hear me? Okay.
Louder.
Louder, okay. We probably got 7,000 megawatts of rooftop and parking lot capacity in the San Diego area. We've developed 120 megawatts. So there's no end, really, to the capacity. It's really accelerating the rate of deployment. That rate of deployment would continue to accelerate just with the net metering program that California currently has, as long as there's no cap on it. And it would accelerate much more quickly with clean energy payments or feed-in tariff program that was fair, that would be just as fair as what the big guys are getting to do their RPS projects now. Those two things.
Okay, thank you. Joshua?
Hi, Josh Arce with Brightline, and yeah, so my question is maybe more for Lisa, but maybe anybody can answer. And it is about in San Francisco where we work, we have been able to work with labor on a really strong agenda around green jobs. We have a new local hiring law that's been really successful, increasing local opportunities for workers from 20% to 34% just in the first year. But around green, we've had a little bit of a challenge, and Francesca can testify that solar is actually pretty much dead in San Francisco since a really controversial decision around a big installation called Sunset Reservoir, where the city got in the middle of a labor dispute. It's really jeopardized our plans to move municipal solar in San Francisco, and I just have a two-part question. One of which is if you are seeing this in different parts of the state as a challenge, and two, whether the phenomenal news that we just learned this week that the state has overruled this decision and now opened up solar to multiple trade unions, laborers, electricians, carpenters, ironworkers, so there's now work for different unions that this might help. It's certainly going to help things in San Francisco, but if it's A, a problem you see elsewhere, and two, if this new decision from the state could possibly impact what's going on from your guys' point of view.
I can comment on what's going on in San Diego, and the biggest concern, labor hasn't been, the difficult thing we have going on in the San Diego and Imperial County area is that the big RPS projects out in Imperial County have labor agreements. And so labor is really getting behind doing the big remote projects. I think the transmission line has a labor agreement. So the big stuff, the big expensive projects that are really the polar opposite of doing local solar have got a lot of support from labor. And what we're working with, in fact, I'm having lunch with an IBW person next week to talk about how can we do more or work together more on local power. And so we haven't had that issue because so many of the projects have been the other way.
And I don't know, Eric, I know that there was a couple of people that Lisa pointed out, if you want to respond really briefly, if you have any thoughts on that, in Lisa's absence.
I'm Eric Emblem, I'm with the Yoshitani Workers in the Joint Committee on Energy and Environmental Policy, and also a member of the BlueGreen Alliance. And I think that the question as well as the response sets the issue. The issue is on large-scale commercial generation stations, they're doing them under project labor agreements. And the fear, and it's a fear thing that needs to be adjusted with education, that there's this polar opposite of doing local generation versus these large-scale generation stations is going to cost good jobs. In the previous panel, I think we talked about good jobs. And I think that we have to work together with the environmental movement and the labor movement to override that fear. Because there's room for both. And there's room to transform generation from these big centralized generating stations to local distributed generation and keep good jobs. And I think that's our challenge. And we're here to work with you, and I know the IBEW is here to work with you, as well as the other labor unions. It's overcoming this fear, because in the past, what's happened when we shift from industries that we know we have these collective bargaining arrangements to new industries, it typically goes below rung. It goes to the lowest wage, to the lowest cost, and then thus middle-class workers get edged out. And we have to work together. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a challenge, and challenges are good, because I think we have the right people in the room to address challenges.
Right, thank you.
Can I just add one quick thing? Is the financial issues around all of this are a part of that same question. You know, as long as we have very limited money available or limited financial tools for this, there's always going to be pressure, lots of it, to keep costs down. And we have got to get over there are huge financial issues here that we've got to solve. When the finance flows at the right rate, then that will be simple.
Thank you.
Hi, Mary Tucker with the Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition, which is a coalition of local governments across the state that have been providing energy programs through the energy efficiency money that comes from your energy bills that you pay through the local utilities, and that you pay through your rates. The California Public Utilities Commission will be taking a vote on May 24th, a decision on how the 2013-14 energy efficiency procurement monies will be spent on energy efficiency. And they will be increasing the local government participation in energy efficiency programs. So they will be increasing the energy efficiency programs, more financing programs such as PACE that Sonoma and others are doing, more job training programs, and I'm looking for a comment from Bill and Bruce. They'll be increasing job training programs, and they're looking more for the creations of some renewable energy networks, and so they're looking for increasing leveraging housing programs, job training, a variety of different things. And so wondering what your comment is on this. The local governments have been very active in making this happen, and looking then too in 2015 and beyond to be able to continue this and take some of the programs away from the investor-owned utilities, and to be able to put more control with local governments and allow them to leverage more partnerships with organizations such as labor, nonprofits, and a variety of different things.
I would turn to one of my experts, since I have about 8 of them at least here. Woody, or someone who's working local government angle here, want to comment?
Keep it quick.
Bill, go ahead.
Just a quick comment on that. Quick comment on that 463-page proposal, which I have not read cover to cover. Is there's some good parts to it, but the CPUC and the state are delaying the launch of the aggressive zero net energy targets in the energy efficiency strategic plan. And my complaint about it is, don't delay. Don't say we're going to start in 2015. Do it now.
So that sounds to me like a really great organizing opportunity, May 24th. to ask that the CPUC not delay. Seems like a very specific organizing action opportunity that I want to put out there, and hopefully some of you can take it back to your organizations. We're going to take one more question in the back. I know you had your hand up for a while.
Eric Stubbe, Ecoplexus. We're a solar developer based in San Francisco. Just first to comment on the last discussion. I think there is some solar happening in San Francisco. We recently constructed 6 solar PV systems on multifamily affordable housing. The latest will be completed this week. It's 650 kilowatts on Valencia Gardens, which is a 260-unit multifamily apartment complex. But the question I have is, several of the panelists addressed the governor's objective of 12,000 megawatts of distributed generation. The biggest question we see is, how does that reconcile with the current utility plans? Basically, many of the big IOUs believe they're going to meet their RPS standards through these large central station power plants. So currently there's no distributed generation program to incent developers to develop distributed generation projects. We've talked about net metering, but we haven't talked about wholesale generation. So SB 32, I think that's 750 megawatts, not even going to get us close to the big goal. So the big problem we see is what programs are going to incent us to get there. So that's a question to all the panelists.
Yeah, ma'am, I have a little plug. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I probably don't have the exact technical answer, but I do want to say that one thing I didn't get to say during my talk is that part of this process of involving communities in energy policy is actually supporting community-led initiatives and bills that are in process that are demanding more renewable energy and specific benefits for low-income communities out of renewable energy and solar in particular. And so our bill AB 1990, which is in the Assembly, it's authored by Assemblymember Paul Fong and is co-sponsored by the California Environmental Justice Alliance, of which my organization is a member. It's a small scale, it's a model size project. It's 375 megawatts of clean energy contract, or otherwise known as feed-in tariff. And it's meant to be built specifically in low-income communities that are designated by a specific mapping tool that I won't get into right now, but we are going to talk about it later in the breakout session, so if anyone's interested. And I did want to say this is I feel like a small program, but a foot in the door of what we're trying to build. And it has a lot of the elements like local higher preference. It's all gonna be devil's in the details. So how it's implemented is going to be the important question. But this is, I mean, some of the things that you're saying are part of the arguments that we're getting against it. And that's why I think we need. This is a political fight. This is not a policy fight per se. So we have to fight for the urgency of these local clean energy projects in the right places that benefit the right folks. So,
great. Any other final wrap-up comments?
Just one quick
Yes.
comment on that. You hit the nail on the head on the fact that what should be happening is 12,000 megawatts is the goal of the state, then the tariffs at the PUC should reflect the goal. They should follow us, not us tailing out to the CPUC, begging them not to diminish programs that have to happen for this to happen. But just take the case of the de facto feed-in tariff or clean energy payments program that the big RPS projects have. If you did the same thing for distributed generation, we could hit 12,000 megawatts by 2014 or 2015. Just getting equal treatment.
Great, well, thank you so much. Please give a warm thank you and applause to our great panel. And I think they'll all be here for most of the day if you want to have some follow-up questions in the hall or during the breaks.
Well, thank you, Francesca and the panel very much. I know we're all constrained by time. We all have a lot to say, so we are going to go into some breakout sessions now. And these sessions, well, first I want to acknowledge the fact that yes, it is a political fight, and you know that's why we need a movement, and that's why we're all together, and that's what we're trying to organize here, is to exactly figure out how to wage that political fight. What are the coalitions that need to be built? What are the sectors that need to be pulled together? Who's going to take leadership? How do we get out a line that makes sense to our communities in a way that they really get on board? And as Bill says, we basically tell them what to do, not telling us what we can't do. All right, so that's basically the story. Now the next session is we're going to go into some breakout sessions. So hopefully people have a little bit more chance to interact with each other. In these breakout sessions, I want to draw your attention to the program book today. And you'll see that in terms of the program, on the bottom of page 4, we have 3 sessions that are going to be highlighting different initiatives that are ongoing initiatives. We're highlighting them because it was through blood, sweat, and toil that people have been able to establish some beachhold in these different areas in terms of the work that's going on. It's an example of people successfully fighting the system to try to actually get something moving, and it's very important that we recognize those efforts and try to interact with them and understand them, and then ultimately try to move them much further ahead, and that's going to be more this afternoon. So just to announce the first one, the one called Energy Efficiency Collaborations, that's going to be taking place in the Laurel Room. Anybody know where the Laurel Room is? You're in it, yeah. All right. So for those people who want to take part in that particular breakout, they don't need to go too far.